How do you go from this to this? I'm Dave, and I'm a professional animator. I've been animating for over a decade, and I've worked at studios like Disney and Illumination Entertainment on movies such as Wish, The Secret Life of Pets 2, Sing 2, and Super Mario. It feels pretty cool to be able to say I've worked on movies like these, but getting to this point was a journey. With this video, I hope that I can shed some light on some of the questions you might have about animating and the animation industry, because when I started out with this drawing right here, I had no idea about what animation was or how to get into it. So this drawing that I have right here, this is Goku from Dragon Ball Z. I drew this when I was probably around 12 years old, and this show is usually what I point to as what got me into animation. Because honestly, to a 12-year-old boy, what could be cooler than this? But after seeing shows like this when I was a kid, my path in life became clear. That was it right there. That's what I wanted to do in life, was to make shows like this. The problem though was that I had no idea how to do that. What I did know though was that cartoons were drawings, so that meant that in order to be able to make cartoons, you had to be able to draw. So that's what I did. So I spent years drawing characters from Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, pretty much whatever anime was popular in Canada at the time. As I got a bit older, I started taking drawing more seriously and learned about things like proportions and anatomy. And then when I was getting closer to graduating from high school, I learned that there were colleges that specialized in specifically animation. And as luck would have it, some of the best colleges in the world for this kind of thing were located in my home province of Ontario. So it seemed so perfect. I could just go to school for animation at either Seneca or Sheridan College, learn what I needed to do, and then I could start making cartoons. And the path was clear, or so I thought. In order to get accepted to the animation program at these schools, you need to submit a portfolio of your work. And since there are many more applicants than there are spots in the program each year, that means that you need to already be very good at drawing just in order to get into the program. And in my mind, I was great at drawing because I was always the proverbial best artist in the class in elementary and high school, but when compared to the other applicants that wanted to get into the animation program, I wasn't very good. But when I was graduating from high school, I made my portfolio, submitted it, waited to hear back, got the letter from the school, and found out that I was rejected, which was a soul-crushing experience. Along with the rejection letter, though, there was an acceptance letter to another program known as Art Fundamentals. And the Art Fundamentals course is a one-year program intended to improve the artistic qualities of its attendees, a large portion of who are people that tend to want to get into animation. So because of that, Art Fundamentals can be kind of skewed towards animation, but that was a good thing for me. So that's what I did. After high school, I attended Seneca College for their one-year Art Fundamentals course. I spent the year working on my craft and getting better at drawing. I worked hard in class, and I learned a lot. And then when the year came to a close, I made a new portfolio and applied to animation again. And I waited to hear back, and then when I did, I got rejected again. So that was another soul-crushing experience, but I still wanted to do animation. So I ended up taking Art Fundamentals again, this time at Sheridan College. And once again, I tried very hard, I improved my skills, I made an even better portfolio, I applied to the animation program for a third time, I waited to hear back, and I got rejected again. And for a little while, I did actually give up on animating, but eventually I circled back and decided to try again for a fourth time. Now, for the fourth time that I applied, I did something different from the previous 3 times. This time, I got critique from someone who was currently a working professional in the animation industry. So using the skills that I'd learned from the previous 2 years of attending the Art Fundamentals program, and also getting some critique from a working professional, I was able to put together a portfolio that was much better than the ones that I had done in the past. So I used my new portfolio to apply to the animation program for a fourth time. I submitted it, waited to hear back, and this time, I was in. I had finally gotten accepted into the animation program at Sheridan College. After having spent years being rejected, the feeling of relief was almost too much to express. But the animation program at Sheridan is a 4-year program, so that means that graduates are awarded a bachelor's degree upon completion. But that combined with my 2 years of art fundamentals meant that I spent a total of 6 years in college before I was able to get into the animation industry. I could make an entire video just going over my experiences in college, but in short, it was great, and I learned the skills that I needed to work in animation. One thing I quickly learned while I was there was that there are many different jobs that you can work as an animator. Prior to getting into the program, I still didn't really know how animation was made, but I learned about the different departments, like you have character design, storyboarding, layout, effects animators, character animators, which is what I gravitated towards. And it sounds kind of funny to say that my favorite part of animating is animating, but that's how it is. What I always liked was the actual process of making the characters move. So that meant that the job I would want to work as was a character animator, or as most studios refer to it, just an animator. And for most of the time that I spent in college, I did only 2D animations. You can actually see some of the 2D animations that I did in school on my YouTube channel here. I started out by actually drawing the animations on paper, like this pencil test you can see here, but then I moved on to animating in programs like Adobe Flash and Toon Boom Harmony. And you might have noticed that all of the movies that I mentioned I worked on at the start of this video are 3D productions. So that means that at some point in time, I learned how to do 3D animation, which we'll get to in just a moment. So as part of the animation program at Sheridan College, the students do an internship in between their 3rd and 4th year, and that's what I did. I got an internship at a studio in Toronto called Guru Studio. And at this internship, I was able to learn a lot about using Toon Boom Harmony software to animate for TV shows. The internship actually went so well that when it ended, the studio asked me if I wanted to just start working there full-time rather than go back to school to finish my last year. I did want to finish school though, so I was able to work out a deal with them where I would work part-time while I was finishing school. So I worked Friday and Saturday in the studio. I finished my 4th year of school and I had 1 day off per week, which was Sunday. So in my last year of school, I spent the majority of my time working on my thesis project, which was a short film called Big Things, which you can see on my YouTube channel here as well. I'm still happy today with how this film turned out. I think it's a very fun film, but after graduating, I didn't actually have to look for a job because I was working part-time at a studio already, so when I finished school, I simply switched from part-time to full-time at Guru Studio. And working at Guru was great. I worked there for about 1.5 years as a 2D animator on a TV show called Ever After High, but I found that even though I had graduated from school and I was working in a studio, I still had the desire to learn more. And something that always kind of bothered me was that I didn't know how to do 3D animation, because pretty much all feature films today are made using 3D software. So that meant that if I couldn't do 3D animation, I could never really work as an animator on a feature film. Yes, there are still some feature films that are made with 2D animation, but by and large, most of them are made in 3D. I could have actually learned 3D animation while I was in school. There was the option to, but I had just chosen solely to focus on the 2D path. But after graduating, I decided to teach myself how to do 3D animation. So on the commute to and from work each day on the train, I would teach myself how to animate in Maya. And fortunately, while I was in school, I was able to make friends with several people who did do 3D animation, so I was able to reach out to them whenever I had questions and get a lot of help that way. I can actually show you one of the first 3D animations that I did. It's not very good, but it was part of the learning process. And around this time, I was also given a fairly unique opportunity because despite never having worked on a 3D production before, based on my previous performance working at Guru Studio on their 2D productions, they were impressed with my performance and liked what I was doing, and they had several 3D productions. So I was actually given the opportunity to move on to one of their 3D productions called True and the Rainbow Kingdom, and I was able to kind of learn how to animate in Maya on the fly while I was working that way. It was a fairly simple show, kind of like maybe a preschool or kids show, but that was good for me because of my lack of experience in doing 3D animation. But I did this job for about 6 months, and then my contract ended, and there wasn't another project to move on to immediately, so that meant that there was no work for me to do, so I got laid off. And I could have gone to work at another studio, but I decided to use this time away from work to focus on learning more about 3D animation instead. Because sure, by this time I was competent enough with Maya to be able to work on kids and preschool shows, but I was still very far off from being able to animate well enough to work on a feature film. So I ended up taking a 3-month 3D feature animation course at iAnimate, and once again I learned a lot while I was attending this course. I did some of the animations you can see here, and I was able to produce a much better demo reel. And with this new and improved demo reel, I was able to get my first job working on a feature production. I ended up getting hired to work as a crowd animator for Illumination Entertainment on The Secret Life of Pets 2. And working on this production was a bit overwhelming at the start. There was a lot to learn about the feature pipeline, but it was very exciting. And I remember thinking about how cool it was that I could animate to voices that I actually recognized, and that I could go and watch the recordings of, the Hollywood actors who were working on this film. But I did quite well in crowds, I guess well enough that I was able to start to stand out. And one day I got kind of randomly called into the director's office. They said that they wanted to have a talk with me. I didn't know what it was about, but I had a feeling that it was going to be a good talk. And it was. They told me that they were going to switch me to the main animation team. So to say I was happy with this would be an understatement. Now, when I first started working at Illumination, that was around the time that it was initially announced that there was going to be a Mario movie. And I actually learned about it just like pretty much everyone else in the world, in that I learned from an online article that just got posted one day saying that Illumination was going to be working with Nintendo in making a Mario movie. And shortly after that, it was confirmed by management that yes, this article was true and that was something that was going to happen. So at that point, it was still years away. I didn't know if I would even be working at the studio when the movie was made, but I thought it would be incredible to be able to work on a project like that. Like, it was kind of like a dream project for me to be able to work on. But it was still so far away at that point that who knew if the project would even become a reality though, right? So I kind of kept it in the back of my mind and just kept working. I worked there for about 2 more years. I finished work on Pets 2, and then I worked on Sing 2 on the main animation team. And after Sing 2, one of the next projects in line to move on to was the Mario movie. They asked me would I prefer to work on Mario or Migration, and I chose Mario. And shortly after that, they confirmed that yes, that would be the project that I would be moving on to next. And it was a bit surreal when, I finally got to start working on this project that I'd been thinking of for years. The first shot that I animated was this one of Luigi as he enters the Darklands, and he, kind of trips and almost falls into this river of lava. And I ended up working on the Mario movie for the entire duration of production as far as animation is concerned. So that was, once again, about 2 years, and still to this date, Mario is my favorite production that I've ever worked on. One of the coolest things about it was that I actually got to animate both of the shots with the original Mario character here that was voiced by Charles Martinet. I can say that the shot you're watching right now was animated by me. Even as I was working on it, I could anticipate people picking out this particular shot, and I was excited to read all the comments on YouTube and things like that about, the original Mario character and this kind of Easter egg thing. But after animation on Mario ended, there was a break in production. And usually if it's just a short break, maybe even upwards of a month or 2, studios might keep animators on their team and, have them do extra work, maybe do some things for marketing or some cycles or things for the credits or things like that. But there was a longer than usual break in between productions, so that meant there was no work to be done and I had to find work elsewhere. And I did find work elsewhere. I ended up doing a short contract working on the Ladybug and Cat Noir movie, but during this time I was also applying to many other studios, one of them being Disney. I had actually applied to Disney twice within the same year, but I never heard back regarding either application, so I just kind of assumed that they weren't interested. But I applied a third time, and the third time I did hear back and they were interested, and I ended up getting a job offer. So that's how I ended up with this cool Disney patch right there with the dinosaur on it, and also my Disney name tag right there. That's me. The project that I worked on was Wish, and it was a very cool experience. And back when I was still trying to get into animation and in college around those times, I remember thinking that working at Disney seemed like this unattainable thing that only the absolute best animators got to do. You know, it was the studio that professors and students would always refer to as being the very top. So in my mind, if you ever got to work at Disney, you had made it. You know, you'd achieved the dream of animators all around the world. And what it came down to for me was just kind of randomly receiving an email with a job offer in it. So it's easy to say that that's all it came down to, but that's not really how it is, because all of the other things that I've said in this video, you know, basically going through my animation career back from when I was a child up until working at Disney, all of those played their own part in leading up to that point. You know, each experience played a part in bringing me to the point where I was able to receive a job offer like that. So that's how I went from drawing this, or I could even pick an earlier drawing. How about drawing something like this? I went from that to working at Disney. So I hope this video was useful, and hopefully it can shed some light on maybe the path you might be able to take if you want to work as a professional animator. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments below and I'd be happy to answer them. As I said earlier, there's a lot that I could have gone into more detail about, lots of things that I touched on in the video, so if there's something in specific that you might want to hear more about, you can leave that in the comments as well, and maybe I can make a future video about it. I'd like to make more videos talking about animation and working in the animation industry, so if you want to see more videos like that, I definitely recommend subscribing. If you can leave a like, that'd be cool too, and why not check out some of the other videos on my channel, maybe some of the animations that I've done in the past. There's lots of stuff to check out there, but otherwise though, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.